Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show. Hi, I'm Paul and I'll be your host this evening, as I am most evenings, let's be honest, on the DrivingMaul show. It's a Monday at 8 p.m. Yes, that's when we try to come to you. I know I've been a bit on and off recently. Sorry about that, folks. It's all been work and school holidays and all that kind of stuff has really got in the way of things. But yes, we're back and hopefully back into a routine for that final run-in of 4 games into the post-season that we have in Super Rugby. And that's where we're going to be keeping our focus this evening, talking about that side of things. Some of the news that sort of kicked off over the last few weeks, I guess, really has been around the coaching side of things. Razor having finalised his assistant coaching setup, meaning that the Blues, the Hurricanes and the Crusaders all are looking for new head coaches going into next season. So that'll be interesting to see who those 3 franchises can get to take on their next head coaching role. Historically, if you look at the Crusaders, they've taken on basically the Canterbury ex-head coach has stepped up as the head coach for the Crusaders, and we'll have to see if they depart from that kind of philosophy. Let's be honest, they've had the fewest kind of coaching changes in recent years, and sort of Blackadder, followed by Razor, a very sort of stable setup down there for that one. Hurricanes, a lot more turnover there, and not sure who they're going to be able to get. I mean, Boyd and Rennie, 2 head coach, 2 sort of coaches with Super Rugby experience, who have said they're off to Japan, or one off to Japan. They're going to say he's not interested in doing full-time role. Yeah, look at it's going to be interesting to see who they can pick up. Up at the Blues, their Smith is clearly got to be the got to be who they're going to go for. You'd think, as he hasn't. As he was helping out at the Blues, and then and has turned down getting involved in the All Blacks post Rugby World Club, obviously involved with the All Blacks currently. So it'll be interesting to see how that one all pans out there. But lots of coaching changes going on. Good evening to those folks who have joined us in the old live chat. Don't forget you can join us on YouTube and Facebook in the live chat, or you can also watch live on Twitter. Christopher and Simon there in the old YouTube. So great to have you guys joining us. Don't forget you can also listen to it as a podcast as well after the fact. Not only this show, but also the Standoff, which is our NRL show that goes out at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday evening. So let's look at what happened last weekend and in the old games. As always, I've got my stats that I'm going to share on screen for those of you who are watching the live stream, watching the video re-recording. And for those on the old podcast, I'll try and talk through what we can see. So we kicked off the round with the Highlanders taking on the Chiefs. The Chiefs carrying on their merry way with a 52-28 win over the Highlanders there with that one. And good set piece from the Chiefs. Perfect scrum, 8 out of 10 lineouts there. But it's those line breaks, topping the line breaks for the comp for the weekend with 12 there. Whereas the Highlanders topping the charts for the number of missed tackles with 34 missed tackles. You can't miss that many tackles against the Chiefs. They are going to punish you, as we saw with that half century there. Look, it was pretty close heading into halftime, 14-21. The Highlanders were in touch. Then a try just on halftime and a try straight after halftime, and suddenly it's 14-35. And let's be honest, the game has gone, and that's where it went. Look, the Chiefs made 178 tackles to 103 by the Highlanders, but missed less tackles, only 28. You've got to say that the Chiefs are building this on defence. When we look at the table, I'll show you. When we look at the points for and against, you can really see where the Chiefs are winning the competition this year. Plenty of kicking as well. And we'll look at the season stats for each of the teams and how they average across those pieces. But sneak preview: the Chiefs are there with the most average kicks from hand per game out of any of the teams. And so again, kicking that ball away, defending strongly and saying we're going to play down your end of the pitch is the style they have gone for. And then that counter-attack off turnover ball or off kick return, scoring points. 17 turnovers from the Highlanders. Not the worst of the weekend, but also at the upper end. So that again also fed the Chiefs. The Fijian Drua continuing on their fantastic home form, beating the Hurricanes 27-28. The upset, or the only upset really, of the round. Should it be that much an upset? Not really sure. They lost at home to the Blues 14-30, but their home record apart from that, beat the Rebels 38-28, so a 10-point win there. Beat the Crusaders 25-24, a 1-point win in that one. So a good home record so far, and we will look at the games coming up for each of these kind of teams with only 4 rounds left. We look at the table, but Arsenal said in our rugby chat that the Drua could go on to win their final 4 games. They've got the Force, Waratahs, Moana Pacifica, and Reds coming up. So a decent run in there. But look, with only 2 of those games at home, I'll discuss what I think about them later. But really good season for the Drua with only their 2nd season in existence. Simon making the point they need 1 more win to secure a playoff spot. Next up, the Crusaders against the Force, and a lot of red against the Force in this one. They were the worst for points, scored the fewest points. They had the worst scrum, with only winning 4 out of 8. The worst line out as well, with 6 out of 9. If you've got no platform off your set piece, you're not going to do very well against the Crusaders. Again, only 3 line breaks from the game, the worst of the round. Similar to the Hurricanes, actually. Hurricanes generally are very good on line breaks. So the Drua really did contain the Hurricanes very, very well. Actually, let's go back to that Drua one versus the Hurricanes. The Drua only 83 tackles made during this game, and only 15 kicks from hand. So the fewest number of kicks from hand, and basically played possession rugby, which is what they've been doing all season. Now they might be attacking in the right part of the pitch or having the ball territorially in the best place. But if you've got the ball and the opposition don't, they can't score. Is kind of the theory there. But it does mean if you do turn the ball over like they did 17 times, you are opening yourself up to lose it, taking away easy points as you're at the wrong end of the pitch. Moving in then to that Crusaders versus Force. As I say, the Force, no set piece platform, and really unable to break down that Crusaders attack. The Crusaders kicked the most this round, 31 kicks from hand, but only had to make made 141 tackles, same as the for the Force, 148. Sorry. So clearly, similar amounts of possession there, or attack or defense having to be done. So the Crusaders, might have kicked the ball away a lot, but they also held on to it in the right sort of areas of the pitch. 10 line breaks, not a high, but a good number there to get their 48 points. Blues against Moana Pacifica, and Blues got out of jail with this one. Let's be honest. It took a penalty try on the buzzer, or after time was up, to win this one. Big call by the ref. I'm not saying it was the wrong call, but I'm just saying, well done, ref, to having the backbone to make that call. It probably was correct. The Moana Pacifica did collapse. The scrum did collapse. It was still about 3 or 4 meters out from the line, but was going backward to the right old rate of knots. So Moana Pacifica so close. Kicking here, the Blues, the worst kicking of the round, and not good kicking by Moana Pacifica either, and one of the worst kicking teams, as in kicking at sticks, in the competition, and really didn't help themselves with this one, with Christian Leofano missing a conversion in the first half, then missing a penalty, and Louis Lea also missing a penalty, a drop goal, and a conversion. That conversion on 69 minutes would have put them 8 points clear and too far for the Blues to come back from. 2 late yellow cards on the 77 minutes and after the buzzer really meant the Blues were finished strongly, but boy, oh boy, they left it late and they left it tight against a team that hasn't won a game all season. In that one, 15 penalties, too many there by the Blues, but with 14 for Moana, you've got to say that there wasn't actually that's perhaps wasn't as damaging as it could have been. And the fewest number of turnovers by the Blues and the fewest number of missed tackles, only 14 missed tackles in this game, and they had to make 162. So one of the higher number of tackles to be made and missed the least. So a real a big shift by the Blues on defence. But I guess probably surprised they had to do that against the bottom team in the league. Moana, most number of offloads there with 12, but not really converting that into line breaks. With only 5 line breaks there. So yes, so close and yet so far by for Moana Pacifica in that cross-town battle against the Blues. Next up, the Reds against the Waratahs. Really one that the Waratahs won around the either side of. One in the second half, 15-all at half time, and it took a penalty after the buzzer for the Waratahs to even things up at 17-all, but they then pulled out to 17-32 with 3 minutes left. So that late try after the buzzer, consolation try, making it perhaps look a bit closer than it really was, as the Waratahs really dominated that second half. Not many line breaks for the Waratahs there, as you can see, and the Reds with a perfect line out, so gave themselves a platform to play off, but clearly could not do enough. And again, another big shift defensively here. Waratahs 151 tackles to only 86 by the Reds, but only missed 18, whereas the Reds missed 20. So that gives you an idea there that yes, the Reds missed a lot of tackles when you compare it to how many they had to make, letting the Waratahs get that gain line, get going forwards, and getting the points they needed to win this one. Final game of the round, Rebels versus the Brumbies. And this is one that was close up until around half-time. Heading towards half-time, it was 14-all, but then a try 5 minutes before half-time and a try soon after half-time meant the Brumbies jumped out to a 14-26 lead, and they were gone at that point. Brumbies, a massive amount of tackles, 200. And as you see, that is a trend that they have had during this season. Only 18 kicks from hand, but still an awful lot of tackling. So they've not been kicking the ball away either. But a huge shift there defensively for the Brumbies to win this one against over in Melbourne, where the Rebels have been pretty decent this season. Not obviously not towards the top of the table, but really have performing above expectations. Perfect scrum there, but the Rebels line out 9 from 13, missing four lineouts. That's hard. That's not good enough against this Brumbies team. A few of those listening on the podcast, that's me taking a quick drink break there. Rebels only 7 penalties, but hey, it didn't help them in this one, where that say either side of half time they let this one slip, and the Brumbies continue on their merry way to second in the table. So what can we learn? So quick look at that table before I go on and look at the season to date stats. But if we look at, as I say, the table, bring it up, there we go. The Chiefs top there, 10 wins from their 10 games, clear at the top. 368 points scored is the most points scored by them. But look, it's not that much more than the Brumbies on 353 or the Blues on 348, really, or any of the other top competing sides. Crusaders 333, Hurricanes 345. I mean, they're all there within about 30 points. So it's all pretty close on the scoring, between 47 and 49 tries across those 5 teams. So all pretty similar on the attacking front. The difference, though, it's on that defence. Chiefs only had 184 points. The next best is 217 by the Blues, a good 30 points behind there. Defensively, the Chiefs really have got themselves in a good position where they're scoring points, but more importantly, they're not letting other teams score points, and that is what is ruling things here. Its defence is kind of at the top and the bottom a key decider, because look, Moana Pacifica 246 points, pretty much one more than the Western Force on 245, who've got 3 wins. Moana Pacifica no wins, but Moana Pacifica 427 points allowed. The next worst is 366, again Western Force, but that's 61 points more that Moana Pacifica have given up there. 10 more tries than anyone else has allowed in. That's a try game that they're allowing, that other teams are not. So you start off with a try in the bank before you even start, and that's really kind of hurt the Moana Pacifica. As I say, they are scoring points. Fiji and Drew have only scored 4 more points than the Moana Pacifica, and yet they're sat there in 8th in a playoff position, and Moana Pacifica are last with no wins. So just a couple of key takeaways there from that one. The Endura, perhaps their Achilles heel is their lack of bonus points. Only got 1 bonus point so far. So that might hurt them come playoff time, or come in that decision. Who's going to end up 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th in that table? It did look like the Highlanders were nicely cruising into a playoff position, but now they're stuck down in 10th and out of the playoffs. So it is very tight from 6th all the way down to 11th place. Just 1 win is the difference between them, but it's an 8-point gap there because of those bonus points that the Waratahs have picked up, but only 6 points to divide the Reds in 7th and the Force in 11th. So still with 4 games to play, all to play for amongst those teams. Waratahs, with those extra bonus points, have put themselves a little bit clear and in the box seat. Obviously, there's a big gap of 11 points between the Waratahs and the Hurricanes there, which shows that gap between that gulf between the top 5 and the rest. The top 5, the next 6, and then Moana Pacifica. You could argue with Moana Pacifica down there, 10 points behind Western Force with a lack of with no wins at all, just 3 losing bonus points so far. Looking at the run-ins then of the various teams, obviously at the top there you've got the Chiefs. Their final 3 games are going to host the Reds, then they're going to host the Hurricanes before they travel to the Brumbies and to the Force. So you've got to say with the Chiefs' record so far, hosting the Reds and Hurricanes shouldn't prove to be too much of a difficulty for them. That trip to the Brumbies, though, who are in 2nd place, that is a tough one for them. But you'd expect the Chiefs to get at least 3 wins there. And the fact that they are already 9 points clear means that you can see the Chiefs, which should finish top of the table. And you're not going to bet against them winning over in Canberra against the Brumbies either. Let's be honest. The Brumbies run in. They host the Highlanders before they head over to Perth to face the Force, and then they host the Chiefs and the Rebels. And again, you'd expect the Brumbies, with their record, to be winning at least 3 out of those games. The one game that is going to be an issue for them clearly is that visit of the Chiefs. Otherwise, they should be looking at 3 wins, which should sit them pretty well in for a home quarter final at the very least, if not semi-final. On to the Blues then, and after their what's been called a shaky performance or a shaky Blues, look, they're still 3rd in the table, 129 points positive in their points difference. The Blues are going well. They've only lost 3 games so far. They're finished, though. They're travelling down to Christchurch to face the Crusaders before they play the Reds, the Hurricanes, and the Highlanders. The Hurricanes are at home. Look, that trip down to Christchurch is going to be a tough one. I think most people would go with home advantage in that one. But the other three, the Reds and the Highlanders should be easy wins. That Hurricanes game but it's at Eden Park, so the Blues should prevail in that one, especially when you hear what the Hurricanes run-in is. But we'll touch the Crusaders first. They've got the Blues we just talked about, and then comfortable games against Moana Pacifica and the Waratahs before they finish with the away in Wellington against the Hurricanes. The Crusaders won't want to be leaving it to that sort of stage, but with the Hurricanes horror running, that last game might not actually mean too much as far as standings in the tables, because the Hurricanes, you've already heard of 3 of their games. They've got Moana Pacifica first up, which is going to be a 5-pointer you'd expect, but that then is followed up by travelling to the Chiefs, to the Blues, and then hosting the Crusaders. 3 games that the Hurricanes are likely to lose, let's be honest. That 11-point gap to the Waratahs means I think they're going to finish 5th anyway, but I think we're going to see the gap between the top 4, between 4th and 5th, open up over the final 3 rounds of the competition. Into then the Waratahs, and what does their run-in look like? Well, they've got the Rebels and the Fijian Drua at home before they travel to the Crusaders, and they have Moana Pacifica at home. That should be 3 wins for the Waratahs, and perhaps that 11-point gap isn't too big to the Hurricanes. Could they climb up into 5th? It would be a big turn up for the books if they could, but I say the Rebels at home, the Fijian Drua at home. Remember the Waratahs beat the Ndrua 17-46 in the Super Round in Melbourne. That was a home game for the Ndrua over there. But so look, the Waratahs a tiny run in and definitely will be involved in the finals. Probably, definitely in an away capacity, but they will be there. The Reds travelling to the Chiefs before they host the Blues. Then they travel to the Highlanders, and then they travel to the Fijian and Drua. The Reds could end up with no wins from their last 4 games. It is a very tough run-in for them. Travelling to Fiji to play the Fijian Drua is very different to hosting them, which is what their rivals, the Waratahs, have got. 2 teams that are close to each other in the table, but could be heading in very different directions over the next 4 games. I say that's a very tough run-in for the Reds. Especially they're travelling to the Highlands as well. The Ndrua then, as I say, Arswin mentioned that he reckoned they could get 4 wins in this one. Looking at it, travelling to the Force, look all the way over to Perth. Other teams have struggled with that one. If you look at the Force's wins that they've had so far this season, at home they beat the Highlanders 30-17. They beat Moana Pacifica 21-18, and they beat the Rebels in the opening round 34-27. So the Force's home record has been very good. So I think that's going to be a tough game for the Ndrua in that one. Simon says the Melbourne Rebels actually had the worst run into try and get a playoff spot, and we'll get on to those guys in a second. So the Ndrua say away to the Force, away to the Waratahs. I think they'll lose both of those, to be honest, before they host Moana Pacifica and they host the Reds. 2 wins at home. You'd expect in the last 2 games when they've beaten teams like the Hurricanes and the Crusaders at home. That which should be enough to see the Ndrua into the finals. But it's going to be so with 2 losses I'm expecting over the next 2 weekends, it's going to be a late one for them, and there's going to be some nerves definitely going into those games. The Rebels then, as Simon was talking about, their run-in. Look, they're not playing many of the top teams. They're travelling to the Waratahs, but then they're travelling to the Highlanders. But so 2 teams that are competing with them for those places before they host the Force, and then they travel to the Brumbies. Look, that game against the Brumbies, they'll be hoping the Brumbies got nothing on the line and resting players, but we'll have to wait and see what the situation is for the Brumbies there. But yeah, those games again away to the Tars, away to the Highlanders are going to be tough for the Rebels. At home, as I say, they've been pretty good. Look, and they did beat Moana Pacifica away. They lost to Fiji away. They lost to the Chiefs away. And they lost to the Force away in the opening round. So look, they've had tough away games. But so perhaps it's a bit harsh to judge their away form. But yeah, I think that tough for the Rebels over the next 2 rounds, and which could see them slip out of contention for the playoffs if their only win is against the Force at home. The Highlanders, as I say, they were looking pretty in that top 8, but losses to losses at home to the Hurricanes, away to the Force, away to the Waratahs, and at home to the Chiefs has seen them slip out of there, and they are in trouble. Let's be honest. They're travelling to the Brumbies next. They're going to lose that game as well. So the home games against the Rebels and the Reds are massively important. They must win those 2 games because the final game against the Blues. Look, I think the Blues are going to be wanting to win that one to try and potentially fight for home semi-final. I think that will actually matter, that game, which means that the Highlanders in for a tough time facing 2 of the top 4 teams, 2 of the top 4 teams, or 2 of the top 3 teams currently away from home. Those 2 are down as losses, you'd have to think. Whereas, say, the Rebels and the Reds at home are 2 they must win, and they should also win. The Force, look, home advantage and flying halfway across the country, or halfway across all the way across the country, across time zones, is the Force's strength, and that's why I think against the Drua they'll get the win. Then they've got the Brumbies at home out. That's going to be a tough game, but will travel be enough before they travel to the Rebels and host the Chiefs at home? The Chiefs won't have anything to play for in that final game. They should be home and dry, top seed. They're going to rest a lot of players, so there is a potential for an upset in that last one for the Force. But tough run in for the Force. I don't think they're going to be challenging. It's going to be touch and go whether they're going to be in the playoffs. Let's be honest. Finally, Moana Pacifica, can they get 1 win this season? Look, away to the Hurricanes, that's going to be tough. Hosting the Crusaders, oh dear. Away to the Fiji and Drua, 3 nasty games coming up for Moana Pacifica. Final game away to the Waratahs. Look, I can't see where that win is going to come for Moana. Let's be honest. The only hope they can have is that the Waratahs aren't playing for anything in that final game, but they could be playing for 5th place in that one. So, as I say, the Waratahs running is much nicer than the Hurricanes. If it goes wrong for the Hurricanes, then the Waratahs might be looking at an important game there. So tough one for them. That's how it all finishes up, folks, over the next 4 rounds. If we have just a proper look at round 12, I think we are looking at all home wins. We've got the Chiefs up against the Reds, the Force hosting the Drua, the Hurricanes against Moana Pacifica, the Crusaders hosting the Blues, the Waratahs hosting the Rebels, and the Brumbies hosting the Highlanders. Sure, there's a few opportunities for upsets there. The Blues could win down in Christchurch, Rebels could beat the Waratahs, and the Drua. Well, hey, if they travel well over to Perth, they definitely are good enough to get the win there. But I think we're looking at 6 home wins from the 6 games this coming weekend. Finally, let's have a look at the stats that I mentioned I'd pulled up for the teams year to date that I've been collecting, and I've gone and highlighted sort of the top teams and the worst teams, or across these ones. Kicking from hand, the 2 teams that kick the most are the Chiefs and the Crusaders, averaging 26 and 25 kicks a game, respectively. The 2 teams clearly decide that they're going to play in the right part of the pitch rather than play down their own end. In contrast to that, the Drua, 15 kicks a game, 10 less than those 2. really playing ball in hand. Moana Pacific and Rebels, the other two that don't kick much, 19 kicks, still 4 more a game than the Drua. But you think the plan there is to play possession rugby, therefore you make less tackles. If we look across the number of tackles, funnily enough, the Drua, who make the least kicks, also make the least tackles, only 100 a game, or 106 a game. But that doesn't work for Moana Pacific and the Rebels, so clearly their tactics aren't working quite so well, perhaps if that is what they're trying to do around the possession of rugby. On the offloads side of things, unsurprisingly, the Drua up there with 10 offloads a game, but leading the way is the Hurricanes with 12 there. And they're the only one that actually managed to convert those offloads into line breaks in there. Moana Pacific and Rebels also trying a high offloading game. The two teams where they're not kicking much. So those are the teams that are offloading the most. The least, well, it's the Brumbies and the Chiefs. But that's not stopping the Chiefs from leading the way on line breaks. So obviously quick ball or good counter-attack is just as important as offloads. Offloads at the end of the day are about getting quick ball, aren't they? So yeah, offloads there. So Brumbies the least, and then you've also got the Chiefs and the Highlanders not offloading much there. It's not helping the Highlanders though, because the Highlanders bottom of the line breaks, only 4.3 a game. Waratahs the other team that don't seem to be able to break that line and having a problem with their attack this season. Only 4.8 for the Waratahs. Unsurprisingly, those teams that have been racking up the points, the Chiefs, the Blues leading the way, actually with 7.9. But your top teams, the top 3 teams in points scored, 368 for the Chiefs sorry, no, that's not fair on the Brumbies. 368 for the Chiefs, 346 for the Blues, and the Hurricanes on 345. Unsurprisingly, they're amongst the top line breaks. The Brumbies only 5.5 line breaks, but still 353 points scored is the second highest. So they're scoring points now. Obviously, line out mauls spring to mind, but yeah, they're doing it a different way. And that's one of the nice things about rugby is there are different ways to skin the cat. There isn't just one way of playing. Turnovers. Who looks after the ball the best? Well, it's actually the Force and the Waratahs with only 12 turnovers a game. The worst, unsurprisingly, perhaps you'd think would be the teams struggling, but Hurricanes actually at 16.7 is the most turnovers a game given up. Now look, that attacking mindset of lots of offloads, lots of line breaks, and going for it there, clearly being part of that. The Rebels, the other team that turn over the ball a lot, 16.3. Again, if you're playing possession rugby, that is one of the issues you might have. One thing that I talked about was when we're looking at the table is that the Chiefs are winning this because of defence, and that shows up here on missed tackles. Only 17.4 missed tackles a game. They are the best. The Blues second there with 18. So unsurprisingly, 2 of the top teams there. The Waratahs, perhaps surprisingly, on 20 are the other team that don't miss many tackles, and yet they're the team, and yet they're sat in 6th place there. Clearly, their problem is attack, not defence so much. You'd think, but they have given away 295 points, but which is quite a few. It's more than all the other, more than the top 5 teams, for example. But perhaps holding onto the ball with the high number of turnovers and the lack of line breaks is putting a lot of stress on that defence. But they don't miss many tackles, even so. The teams that do miss tackles, though, the Highlanders, 29 tackles a game, the worst out of the league, and also they're the team, one of the worst out of the leagues in the number of tackles they have to make as well. So look, their lack of control of the ball, lack of game control, game management is putting their defence under stress, and they're missing tackles because of it. And that's obviously a part of their problems that they have. I say one of the Waratahs not making very many breaks. And perhaps that's also hurting them getting over that game line. So lots of missed tackles there. The other team, the Rebels, missed quite a few tackles. So high turnovers and missed tackles. That's going to make it for a tough day at the office for the Rebels, and probably explains their position in the table, even though the performances have been encouraging, I'd say above perhaps what we expected. Number of tackles you have to make, as I say, that ball in hand philosophy of the Fijian Drua working there, only 106 tackles, 10 less than the next, which is the Reds with 116. The only one actually where they're not an average team. Everything else is just average from the kind of middle of the park. But having to not make many tackles is their one strength for the Reds. Not particularly bad in any other departments per se. The teams that are going through a lot of work, well, the Brumbies, 148 tackles a game is the highest out of any of the teams. So they're definitely putting their team through an awful lot of work. And will that tire them out come towards the end of the season? Is that going to wear them out? We'll have to wait and see there. Lots of work on defence. The Force and the Highlanders also racking up a lot of tackles there, doing a lot of defending. Unsurprising for your 10th and 11th place teams in the competition. You might think that the Moana Pacifica there with only 124, but look, they're one of the teams that don't kick much and trying the ball in, trying the possession philosophy rather than the territory philosophy, which is probably what is leading to that fewer number of tackles having to be made. But I say that just puts them in the average category rather than a particularly low number. Who are the good boys? Who are the bad boys? Well, from the penalties point of view, the Rebels and the Brumbies are giving up the fewest penalties. They've got the best discipline, whereas the Force and the Waratahs have got the worst discipline at 12 there. But look, not that big a difference between 9 and 12 is the range that we have. A lot of teams sat there, obviously, on 10 and 11 penalties a game. Finally, taking your points, and Moana Pacifica, 68.7%. One of the worst kicking teams when kicking sticks, and obviously that hurt them at the weekend against the Blues. Now, I thought the Blues would be in that crowd, but they're not. They're kind of average. The Andrua and the Force are the other two teams that can't hit the side of a barn when kicking off the tee. The good teams, the Brumbies, the Rebels, and the Waratahs are racking up points. Not really helping the Rebels or the Waratahs necessarily maybe that much, but the Brumbies good with the kicking. I just realised I missed one. The Highlanders, 84% actually is the best. So I've missed one there. Sorry, folks. Bad of me to miss that one. So 84 actually the Highlanders. The one thing they are good at is kicking sticks. Well, if you're giving up other points, that doesn't really help you too much. So yeah, so I thought it was really interesting to have a look at those stats now that we're kind of most of the way through the season, and give you an idea as to some of the different game plans that of the particularly around that kicking side of things of the Chiefs Crusaders compared to your Andrua, Moana Pacifica, and Rebels side of things. Anyway, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're all having you're all enjoying the rugby that you're watching with the Super Rugby that's going on. I'm also following my cycling as the Giro d'Italia has kicked off or cycled off, pedalled off at the weekend. So I'll be keeping an eye on that one. But I'll be back hopefully next Monday as we get back into a bit of normality and talking rugby with you. So have a good week and enjoy your Super Rugby this coming weekend.